Take three. Hello, music fans. This is Music is a Journey. Welcome to the channel. I'm Peter. Huh. Feline distractions there in the first two takes of this video. So, Miko, what are you doing? My cat is doing something. There she is. Hi, Miko. And then I started thinking about, well, if I'm going to do it, what bands am I going to do? Sub to the channel. I've already watched his take on this. Miko, I'm gonna have to start my video again if you're stepping on my books. My bookshelf of expensive photo books is not a kitty jungle gym. Please respect that. I'm asking you. I implore you. I beseech you. Pretty please with sugar on top. She's gonna jump. You want to go up there, don't you? So I am doing a thread today, a response to a thread. I said earlier this year, a few weeks ago, I'm not doing any more threads because most of my video output over the last few months had been threads, and I wanted to do my own videos, my own ideas. But yeah, I saw people doing this one and I thought, I think I can pass, it's okay. But the more videos I saw of people doing this, the more I felt, okay, maybe I do want to give it a try. And then, of course, just a lot of the bands that I might have considered doing were being taken, and I didn't want to be doing repeats so much. So anyway, I have dug into the collection and I have pulled out some albums to show. So this is for the GTR Rock Realm channel with Mr. Ron Haggerty. I have subscribed. I've watched his video about this after having watched about 7 or 8 others. And he recently turned 48. It's probably been about 2 or 3 weeks ago by now. Anyway, happy birthday, Mr. Ron Haggerty. Belated birthday. Welcome to 48. I did that a little while ago. And so for this here, he would like us to show 5 bands, show the 4th, and this is totally unrehearsed, can you tell? He would like us to show the 4th and 8th album of 5 different bands. So here we go. First of all, Y&T, an excellent hard rock band from the Bay Area. They started out in the 1970s as Yesterday and Today. They reached the 1980s and shortened their name to Y&T just because that's what they were known by. A lot of their fans were calling them Y&T. The name Y&T on its own is not particularly striking, and this band never made it to the really big time. And some people say it might be because of the Y&T name is not particularly catchy. But anyway, this is their 4th album, Black Tiger. It is the first of 3 albums to feature a kind of metallic-looking artwork. Miko's making lots of noise out there. And also the first album to feature their classic logo here. And this is, of course, the classic lineup of the band, who existed from 1974 until the late 80s sometime. All right, so this is just a great album. This is probably my 2nd or 3rd favorite Y&T album, and I really enjoyed listening to Y&T back in the early 80s. I have all of their albums except the debut now. So let's move us along here from Black Tiger, their first album with the classic logo here, moving up to their 8th album, Contagious. This came out around 1987, and this was their first album with Geffen. You see, Y&T were signed to A&M from the album before this, and they felt they weren't really getting good support from A&M. They needed more, a label that was willing to put more investment into the band. So they signed with Geffen and came out with Contagious. And Geffen said, oh yeah, no, we're going to take care of you guys much better. And they basically made them into a kind of glammy band. This is more late 80s, so there's more of that big production sound. Still great hard rockin' band, still the same lineup. But they were given a single and a video to shoot for the single. And then they said, well, we want to do our 2nd single and we're going to do this song. And they said, no, you got your single. That's it. You get another single when you do another album. So, yeah, there is a whole big messy story about Y&T really hardworking band, and they haven't had an album of original material out now since 2011, I think it is, around that time. And the only surviving member of the original lineup is lead guitarist and vocalist Dave Minichetti. Everyone else has since passed on. All right, my next band, I believe Rob at Northern Revolutions showed this, because as I was thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to do this band, and I was pulling out the albums, I suddenly could hear Rob talking about them. And he also recently did a video showing his entire collection and ranking the albums of this band, so I might be getting that confused. But just in case, if you have not seen Rob's channel, his video about this band, or his video response for this thread, where he probably may have mentioned this band, you can watch my video now. So this is a band called Blue Rodeo, known as alternative country, basically a country band with a lot of rock, or a rock band with a lot of country, whichever way you want to look at it. Also some other things in here, sometimes some psychedelic stuff, sometimes some good, really solid rockin' stuff, but definitely a country element. And this is their fourth album, which is called Lost Together. The cover shows the band members standing on a rooftop looking down. The opening song on here is called Fools Like You, and this is basically talking about the government's mismanagement of native land issues. Yeah, I really like this album, and this is also the last album to feature keyboard player Bob Wiseman. The first four albums, Blue Rodeo albums, I like them all. They all have some really great songs on, and there's some pretty creative music happening. A lot of thanks to Bob Wiseman's efforts on the keyboards there. So Lost Together is the fourth album, and then he left. And the album that came after that actually is considered their best album of all time. But there's no Bob Wiseman, and there's not as much electric stuff going on that album, so I don't like it as much as everybody else seems to. However, their eighth album, The Days in Between, I quite like this one here. And Rob at Northern Revolutions, he says this is his absolute favorite Blue Rodeo album. He loves it, but the band apparently really doesn't like it, and I think he said they never play any songs off of this at their concerts. Anyway, for me, this is probably one of the last really good albums by the band. The one before this, the seventh album, I felt was a little too mellow. I really can't get into albums that are mellow, track after track. But this one here has the band's usual variety, some kind of country western type ballads, some rockin' songs, and then some rockin' ballads with some country western stuff, or some rockin' songs with country rockin', well, like that. Anyway, cool band, lots of good stuff, and there's still one more album that Rob says is really, really good that I think I should get. Otherwise, yeah, doing quite all right. All right, that's Blue Rodeo. What am I talking about? Here we go. This is a band, 5440. I really discovered them for the first time last year. I mean, I've known about them since, I don't know, the mid-1980s, but I only first started listening to them last year, and I liked their music so much, I bought their entire studio catalog. So this is their fourth album, which was called, I have to check this, don't I, Fight for Love. The reason why I'm checking is it's not one of my top favorite albums, although it is still a really good one. This is an interesting mix of late 80s pop rock, jangle rock, and sometimes a little bit more hard rock inside to it. The interesting thing about 5440 is that instead of having keyboards in the music, one of their guitarists also played the trumpet. So in a lot of their 80s songs, if you hear an instrument in the background that sounds like it's a keyboard, if you listen a little more carefully, you'll hear it's a trumpet. And even on the earlier stuff, the trumpet was featured more prominently. Anyway, this was also the band's last album, new album, with the Warner Reprise label. They actually had 5 albums to go out with that label, and the last one was it 5? 1, 2, 3. Oh, they actually only had 4 albums with Warner, but the last one was a compilation album. So yeah, I guess, you know what, Steve at ABC, Steve, A is for argon, B is for beryllium, C is for carbon-based life form, Steve, he actually did his video response to this as a theme, like with goodbye, hello and goodbye. So the fourth album was hello something and the eighth album was goodbye something. So maybe this is kind of a change-up theme here. The last album with Warner, and then we go on to the eighth album, Since When? And this sees a very big change in the band's sound. Now, in the 80s, of course, they had, well, they evolved their sound in the 80s anyway. And then in the 90s, they became somewhat of a hard rockin' alternative rock band with kind of punky roots in a way as well. But then with their eighth album, this has a strong country feel to it. And I happen to know from the lyrics of another song, they were in Regina, Saskatchewan. And they happen to be in the same venue as Blue Rodeo. And the singer-songwriter here, Daryl Osborne, happened to meet Greg Keeler of Blue Rodeo and had a little chat together. And coincidentally, this is 5440's most countryfied album. In fact, it's probably their only album that has a bit of a country feel to it. Otherwise, it's a pretty... Actually, no, this is quite a different step for the band. Yeah, this is, if you listen to the three albums that came before this, they are rockin', pretty solid, rockin', energetic albums. This one has a lot of mellower tracks, more acoustic guitar, and yeah. So that is, how many bands? That's three now. So now, of course, I've got to mention Voivod. Why not? So Voivod being one of Canada's premier bands to appear out of the thrash speed metal scene of the 1980s. However, they were never really thrash like everybody else was thrash. First of all, they were from a pulp and paper town in Quebec, so quite a bit different from, say, California or New York. And they were very heavily into science fiction. This, the first 5 albums actually feature this character here on the cover, called the Voivod, all artwork drawn by the drummer. And this is among fans' top favorite albums. I think if you look at the top album rankings by people who are into Voivod, this one most commonly is number 1. Dimension Hatros, by the way. I really like it, but I got it later on. So the albums I got as a teenager, I just tend to favor more. And somehow I missed this one. But it is definitely a really cool, interesting album. And then lineup changes in the band. They are now only 2 people, the guitarist and the drummer. So they get one fella in who can play bass and sing, and they go for a very different sound. And this was, they only recorded 2 albums with him, by the way. What was his name now? Eric Forrester, I think it was. And this is the first of those albums. It's called Negatron. This is from about, what is it, 1995. Yeah. So again, we're talking about the 4th and 8th album having a very different sound to them. All right, and then the last one to talk about, I'm sure nobody's mentioning this one. This is the Japanese metal band Ningen Isu. This shelf here is their entire discography minus one compilation album that I didn't need because I have all the songs on it. But anyway, this is their 4th album called Rashomon. They are a 3-piece band. However, only 2 members are pictured on the cover. That is because their drummer left after the last album. And they still had a contract with their label to record, it was 5 albums in total. This one here, Rashomon, they brought in Masahiro Goto, who was from another band called Gerard. He was a friend of theirs, and so he played drums on this as a guest drummer, or session drummer, I think. But this album was really fraught with lots of technical difficulties and setbacks. First of all, at the start, they wanted to get Tony Iommi to produce it. But Tony Iommi's schedule was a bit too busy. So then they asked Gene Simmons. Gene Simmons gave them a quote how much he wanted for it, and it was just way too much money. So I think they ended up self-producing or finding some local producer. Now I've forgotten. I knew about this before because I have a book here about the band and I read some of it. Anyway, so yeah, we have just the bass player, Kenichi Suzuki, and the guitarist is Shinji Wajima, and both of them take turns doing lead vocals and did this album. Oh yeah, that's right. They also had some troubles. There were supposed to be 10 tracks on here, but they couldn't finish recording in time for the deadline. So this is their shortest album with only 9 tracks. This was released in 1990. Just a moment. 90, 91, 92, 93. This fourth album was released in 93. Then they get dropped from their label. The label releases a compilation album. They do 3 more albums on indie labels. They get a new drummer for 2 of the albums. Then he leaves. Then Masahiro Goto comes in for the 7th album, again as a temporary fill-in drummer. But they decide to ask him, hey, wouldn't you just like to join our band? And so finally for the 8th album, they got Masahiro Goto on drums, permanently a member of the band for the next 5 albums. This 8th album, well, basically it is a requiem for the 20th century, requiem for the 20th century, and it was released in 1999. The cover, by the way, shows an old Japanese torture method. Here, Shinji Wajima is kneeling down on a board, and this board has very jagged ridges in it, and then they place heavy stones on top of your lap like this, and the weight of the stones presses your legs into this board. And they were just going to do it as, you know, at a museum as a kind of setup for the photo, but Shinji Wajima said it actually seriously hurt like heck. It's really painful. Those stones were heavy and that board was not comfortable. So anyway, they did that for this cover here. Yeah, okay, so that's me rambling on because I did not prepare for this at all except selecting the albums. But there you go, Mr. Ron Haggerty of GTR Rock Realm. My contribution, so I think I must be the last one to the party because I'm pretty sure everybody else that I know in the VC has already done a video. That's it. Thank you all for watching. Comments welcome. I respond to everybody because that's what makes this so much fun, is all the interaction. Now, it's going to be about a few days before I get another video up, so I'll give you all a break. You don't have to listen to me. Thank you everyone for watching. See ya.